name's Simon Fickinger. I'm a clinical family therapist, and I work for the Family-Based Services Program of Agency Friends to You.
Good evening, my name is Doreen Edgemore, I'm an attorney at law, and I just know that Lyden work
I'm Douglas Harkin. I'm a district judge of the 4th Judicial District, and it's my court and the court of 3 other judges that makes decisions regarding child custody, visitation, matters of that nature.
I'm Alice Kennedy. I'm an attorney in Missoula, and I also do guardian ad litem.
Frequently at the meetings of this type, there are questions about what's the right thing to do with child visitation. And the judges of the 4th Judicial District some years ago decided to develop some guidelines. And these guidelines do not apply to every case, but we found that when attorneys have these guidelines in front of them and they're giving advice to parents that have children and the parents are involved in custody matters, custody and visitation, child support, that reviewing these guidelines is a pretty clear indication to the parties, and the attorneys can pass this on, about what the judges think are appropriate visitation guidelines, like the distinction between children under age 5 and infants and children that reach, that are not nursing, and children that are toddlers. This is essentially what we think would be good visitation rules in the event that parents cannot agree. So you can use this to help you answer questions that you might have regarding visitation, or basically visitation in custody. But in the event that your question is whether, and if so, how hard you should spank your child, that's not in there. That you'll have to get from another source. Maybe visitation, support, custody, discipline, common behavior from kids of various ages, how you get a lawyer to help you with the trouble that your kid's gotten you and your kid into. That's why we've got some lawyers here, I think, to give you some advice about that. Should I talk about new law? Here's the new law. The last legislature passed a law that said if you give your child a weapon that the child takes to school, you are criminally responsible.
And one thing that I've really noticed in my practice, and I solely do family law, guardian ad litem work, and one thing that I come up against time and again is a problem where people come to me and they have all these rights. Parents have all these rights, and it's very much directed against the other parent. It's not about what does my child need, what is in the best interest of my child, but I have a right to this, that, or the other thing, you know, $500 worth of child support, or whatever it is. And they really don't hesitate to put down the other parent in putting forward their rights. And I have been in the presence of parents who carry on these conversations in the presence of their children. And that is really a very negative thing to happen with children. And I think that when people are going through custodial battles or trying to work out custodial arrangements, it's really important to remember that your children hear things, they pick up things right away, and that you don't just have the right to time with your child, but you have a responsibility to your child to encourage their relationship with their other parent and foster that as best as you can under the arrangement that's worked out. And I know that that's a really hard thing to remember when you're upset and stressed, but I can't think of a case that I have that I don't have to really talk to my clients and to people who are involved with guardian ad litem repeatedly about this issue. You know, they really, when people are upset, they speak very negatively, and it's really a problem that I see where they see their rights and not their responsibilities. just as important.
I have a question. I've been divorced 2.5 years. My ex-husband has not seen the boys in our phone that length of time. I am concerned he may have sexually molested my oldest. And he recently, like in the last week, wants visitation. Now, I don't think I can refuse. I mean, legally, he does have visitation rights. I do have sole custody. I don't know what to do here. I mean,
You need to break it down into its component parts. First part is you have custody, he has visitation, so you presume that he has the right to visit his kids. Then this other factor comes in, which is the suspected abuse. If you didn't have the suspected abuse, you let him see the children. Okay? And so you need to follow up on the suspected abuse. And that is why we have other people here. They will tell you what to do about that. Because if it's true, or there's a reasonable basis for it, then that puts the visitation on park, or sets it aside.
for instance, he called yesterday, I wanted to see the boys, so I let him, but I was there the whole time. And I kept an eye on him the whole time.
You can't continue to do that on and on. You have to do something about the abuse. There's more than just what the boy may say. Your concern, I think, is that he will re-abuse that boy or abuse the younger boy.
He does have a past history.
Okay, that was my next question, is what information do you possess which indicates that he has a propensity to do this?
He was molested as a child, and as a child, he molested a little girl.
Okay. During your marriage to him, were there any events or any things he said that led you to believe that he was inclined this way?
No, but I never I didn't even know he had this until we were married 2 years. And when I found out, I didn't even go anywhere. I just stayed home all the time. So while I was home, he never had a chance to do anything, as far as I know, if he was going to. I just don't know.
Well, it does you no good to keep this in the dark and stew and fret about it. And what will happen is you will begin proceeding on a hidden agenda. And your agenda will be to keep him away from the boys every chance that you get, because you can't go on the upfront agenda, which is you're an abuser and I'm cutting you off from visitation, or we're going to cut you off. And you'll start hiding the boys and doing all this sorts of stuff, and that's not right. You've got to be straightforward about it and either prove it or didn't prove it, or if there's a reasonable basis for starting to restrict visitation, then begin to do it upfront.
Unfortunately, in many custody battles, the two things that I see a lot, both in my private practice and guardian ad litem work, is either chemical dependency, drug, alcohol problems, or they're raised to limit visitation with the parent, or sexual molestation concerns. We have to be very careful that we don't falsely accuse individuals of these things. It's very difficult for somebody to prove a negative, and especially what you're asking me to do. I think it's important when we look at child custody matters to see or to ask ourselves, what do we want of our children? What do we want our children to grow up to be? We want them, firstly, to experience satisfaction with their lives. And secondly, to positively influence the lives of others. How do we do that? We look at the three aspects of development of a child. We look at the physical aspect, the intellectual aspect, and finally the social and emotional aspects of the child.
Coordination, communication, all becomes more and more difficult. Excuse me, the more people that get added to the case. And I see this quite often. I contract specifically with the Department of Child and Family Services as a therapist, and end up often trying to mediate between the family that I'm serving and the caseworker that's working with them. And sometimes this kind of thing that you're describing, the kind of thing that I'm hearing happens, where the case is kind of stuck. And generally when that happens, there is some level of animosity or discontent between the adult in the family and the caseworker. The caseworker typically describes to me that they feel cases where I work, that they feel that the family isn't doing, the parent isn't doing what they need to be doing, that they're working really hard to get a treatment plan, but that things aren't happening. Family describes to me things like you're saying, caseworker doesn't listen to me, I've been trying to do this, I'm not given the chances that I need to have. And often it's just because there's lots of things involved. There's poor communication, there's distrust, you know, family don't trust caseworker.
And now I
doesn't
don't trust
trust
them
family.
to
Sure,
at all.
yeah, and I hear.
My idea of what from them was they were there to help you in a situation where, say you needed help, get counseling or whatever, to keep your family together.
Right,
Okay? I was in the process of doing that. When I called them for help,
right.
because I called them for help, my children were immediately taken, period. No questions, no nothing, gone, history, can't talk to them anymore.
So you feel like you're betrayed by somebody that you
Big
sought
time.
out for help.
Big time.
Let me try to say again, I agree with what's been said so far, and I hope we don't feel like you're getting a runaround from us. It's hard for us to say, you know, we don't know anything about the case or anything like that, but in my experience, when the families are stuck like that, the thing that seems to help best, again, is to find another party that's not an additional one, but if you have a new attorney, I would say, my advice is to you and that attorney sit down with that caseworker, and you've got the attorney that can go with you and that can sort of mediate, and again, say, not by yourself, with the attorney, now look, caseworker, I'm extremely frustrated, I want to see a treatment plan, I want to have spelled out exactly what you need me to do, and have the attorney there, and then not only are you going to feel better about it, caseworker's going to feel better about it too, and be able to feel like they can get what they're asking you to do across maybe a little more clearly, and you can maybe get unstuck with the help of this person. Get the list of things you need to do. It's my
Well, I've been
understanding.
trying to do that, like I said, it just happened a month ago that I
Yeah.
finally got it. I'm going on 3 years.
It's been a long
Just now
time.
getting
But
it.
you may be able to do
And
something.
I've already gone through, I mean, like I said, I volunteered for drug evaluation, the whole 9 yards. I went and did everything I was supposed to do, up and beyond that, and then it's thrown out. It ain't good enough.
Right. So now you have somebody, if you bring your attorney along and they have the treatment plans go down in writing, you'll know exactly what they're asking you to do, whether you agree that it's a good idea or not, I don't know, but you'll know what they're asking you. And you'll know kind of what the steps are that you need to take, and you have somebody there that can verify it so that it's not, so that you don't do it, and get it all done and then have somebody throw it out. I don't think you're ever gonna satisfactorily discover how you got stuck or how you got into this, but I think you can focus your energy now on maybe getting unstuck and moving on from here. I don't think any of us or a caseworker, anybody could give you an answer for why, what happened to you, and have you go out from here feeling better about that, and feeling like, oh, well, yeah, it was all right, it was all good. We can't do that for you, but we can hopefully help you figure out how to get unstuck. Get the meeting, get a list of the things you need to do, get working on those, and that probably is your best course of action right now, I think.
But even if I do that, because of my child being 13 years old, I've been flat out told she doesn't have to come home ever. She never has to talk to me again.
That's something maybe to start focusing on then. with
Because
the
they are
counseling.
preventing from day one, me even
I have a question for you. Are you listening to what they're telling you?
Yeah,
How does it compute in your mind?
that I just need to go through this treatment plan or whatever, whether it does any good or not.
Every time they give you advice, you have a reason not to follow it. Now, the question I have for you is, are you hearing what they're saying, and are you willing to do what they say?
Yes.
Case closed. They gave you good advice. You're going to get nowhere if you beat up fast. You must move on. Listen to your lawyer and button your lip. Or you will have no good results. That's the way it works. I don't need to be brutal with you, but that's the way it works. Yes, sir.
Judge Harkin, I'm concerned with the way things work.
Okay.
There is massive assumptions going on here that attorneys are doing their job and guardian limbs are doing their job. The people are put in place for purposes
I think that there's the assumption is they haven't done their jobs. The attorneys haven't done their jobs, or she probably wouldn't be in the trouble that she's in.
Exactly.
And the social workers haven't done their jobs. And that's what we're saying is, we recognize and acknowledge that some problems occurred in the past with social workers and attorneys. And we can't help that. But what we've got to do is get a new lawyer like she has, and get a new plan going, and if they tell her to do certain things, do it. But I agree with you that there have been problems with attorneys and social workers. Absolutely correct.
I'm concerned about future cases.
Okay.
I'm proposing that a new method be used, especially in a case of allegations, to determine the truth. Because a social worker has a massive amount of power, and there is a capacity to damage the household. Rather than even initiating a case, I'm proposing that allegations be proven. And I'm proposing that a method be discerned to find the veracity of these allegations. Perhaps the use of polygraph could be
Polygraphs are not allowed in Montana, period, end of discussion. The Supreme Court has said over and over again, we will not allow polygraphs. Can't do it. Even if we wanted to, I couldn't. Even if he wanted to, he's not allowed to. Absolutely not allowed to. It's just the way it is. Supreme Court said that. And they don't even give us any fudge room at all to use one even for our investigations. Can't use it in any courts. What is your disability?
I have to wear disc brakes for the rest of my life.
Okay.
And
I'll see that as a disability, as far as your parenting skills are.
okay, you don't see it as a disability, but my ex-husband does. He's telling me that,
Now listen to me carefully. The person that decides is me, or one like me. And we hear BS stories every day. And when a guy would come in and say, she's an unfit mother, why look, she walks with a limp, I'd probably throw him in jail.
good, you can throw my ex-husband in jail.
Because that is absolute nonsense. If your disability was, for example, you were addicted to heroin, or you couldn't see the difference between right and wrong, and you thought wrong was right, you had some antisocial personality disorder, and you thought your child was possessed by Satan, and you must beat him up, or cut him apart, or do some sort of mental disability that goes to your ability to parent, yes. Why are you listening to him?
Yeah, just,
Next question. That is not even something we should be talking about.
Well,
So,
this is what I'm up
he's
against.
so stupid if he says that.
This is what I'm up against because I have been told by him and his lawyer and by other people that I'm an unfit, incompetent parent because of my disability. True, I've got limitations where I can't do a whole lot of things with my son. But yet I can still take him to the park and let him play during the summer. I can still take him to the mall. I can still do a lot of things, but
We don't need to have this discussion. Because if he comes to court and says you're an unfit mother because you have a problem with your foot, wonderful. Spend all your time, say this thing, spend all your time building your case on your foot, on my foot. Because when you get to court, a lawyer like this will slam dunk him. Do you agree?
no, yes, I do agree.
We should-
We need to realize who we're listening to and what the information we're getting. I get this all the time, and no doubt, and you do too, no doubt. Well, I heard the law is, there's no such thing as sole custody anymore. There's no such thing, if I get sole custody, it means I don't get visitation, I don't get visitation on the parent doesn't, the other people get visitations. Go to a competent individual to get your advice, okay? Don't listen to other people that have been through the same situation or similar situation, or relatives that have been through the same situation, or somebody down in Arizona that went through the same situation. You need to inquire, and there are a number of agencies. Montana Legal Services would help with family law
I don't
questions.
qualify with them, no.
But you can ask them questions.
I have tried an attorney.
I must be on the phone 20, 30 times a day with phone calls from people just wanting to ask a question about the law. I mean, you can call people up, you can call attorneys up, you can call Montana Legal Services up, okay? Get the information that you need, get it from a reliable source.
Yeah, here's what, in my opinion, here's what makes an unfit parent. If you're, maybe people are concerned, I don't know what makes me unfit, and I don't know what people might call me on, my foot. And you're right, the foot doesn't do anything. You need to be able to adequately protect your child, and you need to be able to adequately nurture your child, I think. If you can do those two things, you're all right. And whatever disability you have, as long as it doesn't interfere in those two areas, I would say, from a therapist's perspective, it doesn't impede your ability to adequately parent your children.
You need to deal with your case first. Then when you get your kids back, then you can carry the torch for others. You need to focus on first things first, which is you and your kids.
And I thoroughly agree with Judge Harper, what you're doing is splintering. You're fighting on so many fronts that you're not giving the one thing that you want, and that's to regain custody of your children. And that's what you must concentrate on now.
And I suggest to you is you have two words that guide everything you do, which is, yes, sir. And that's just what he said. There'll be a plan for you, and you say, yes, sir, I'll do it. If it's going to get my kids back, yes, sir, I'll do it. It's going to make me a better mom, stay away from the drugs, stay away from the alcohol, go to parenting classes, yes, sir, I'll do it. First things first, get your kids back. Be a good mom. Do what they say. And if they say this list of things that they talked about, like here's your parenting plan, and you say, yes, sir, I've done it all, I'm ready to get my kids back. And you'll get them.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a friend, she was gonna be here today, but she's got the flu. Her daughter, her daughter is getting divorced. They have 2 children. The daughter lives with my friend, her mom. Her daughter is not letting her see the grandchildren. She makes a point, if she has her grandchildren, she only brings them over to the house when my friend's at work. My friend wants to see the grandchildren. She's talked to the father. Well, it's up to the mother. She wants to know what her rights are, what she can do to get visit, whether it's joint custody or visitation rights, her grandparent rights.
This is the grandmother
Right.
wants some visitation.
Right. The daughter is not fighting for the kids, doesn't want custody of the kids. That's not the issue here. The grandmother wants to see the kids and she's not allowed to.
You're in luck.
So she can't ask, I thought I'd ask for her.
You're in luck. Read it.
Can't see.
I can't hear and you can't read. It's called grandparent visitation, and we have a specific statute in Montana that allows a grandparent on their own. They don't need mom and they don't need dad. They can come in on their own and get visitation.
I knew there was grandparent rights, I just didn't know. I'm a legal student at the College of Technology, and I didn't have any clue where it would be at, so I just, even just so I tell her where it's at.
We'll write you a little
I'll write you a little note here.
That way she can look at it.
She can, and it doesn't make any difference. A mother could be unfit, no good, in another state. But she has her own right. Montana's one of the special states that allows that.
So in other words, my mom and my stepdad can get little,
They can get grandparent visitation rights.
even though they're out of state.
Sure. But you see, when I decide how much your mom can get, I have to look at what a burden it is to go here and there, and can your mom visit with the kids when the kids are with you? And we kind of all work this into a mix, and we'll ask the counselor, like, what do the kids think about that, and all this sort of stuff. But the grandparents have a right. all by themselves. Used to be they had to ride with the mom or ride with the dad and hope that the mom or dad had some rights and then they could see the kids at the same time. Not anymore.
Because my dad and my stepmom lived down in Texas, and my mom and my stepdad lived down in Florida.
See, that's one of the big problems we have now is you've got a mom who's got her mom here and her dad here, and we've got a dad and his mom here, and you know, like, there's 4 grandparents up there. That's pretty tough on the kids to like, well, you're going to Texas this week and New York the next week and on and on. Who's paying for all this?
Everybody here's in the same town.
Yeah.
Well, see, my mom and my stepdad that live down in Florida, they can care less about myself and my son.
Yeah.
But my dad and my stepmom that live down in Texas, they've been after me to have me and my son to come down there to visit. But I don't know if that's allowed for me to take my son clear out of state.
Why don't you tell them to ask for they got some bucks so they can hire a lawyer?
I don't know.
Well, tell them to consider hiring their own lawyer here and asking for their own visitation.
Okay. Because they've been wanting to see Eric, and the only time...
How old is Eric?
He's 4.
He's about old enough to get on a plane, don't you think? With a little supervision.
My kids are that age. Scary.
Oh, without a parent.
Oh, well, you know.
Well, they
They
Still, that's
You
scary.
pay an extra fee,
Yeah.
but they have a stewardess take them on the plane, you order them to the airport
Right.
with the ticket. You walk them to the gate, the steward is right there, they
Takes
put
the-
the ID tags,
Yep.
You got a big old
And
bag
I-
on him.
yeah.
And it's putting them worrying the whole time to make sure they get there okay.
You're absolutely right.
one worrying, and they're just fine.
Get on the last question. How does the courts view Parents Anonymous as far as, like, the parenting classes? We have a meeting on Monday nights. I know the courts used to recognize, if a person was ordered by the court to go to a parenting class, is Parent Anonymous on the list? A lot of people say that they're having to pay for the parenting classes, and so forth.
I think it would depend on the content of the class. If you go to the class and have a big gripe session, that doesn't count. What you need to have is meaningful discussions about, let's talk about spanking tonight. Let's talk about bedwetting tonight. Let's talk about kids that tell, I don't have to, Mom, you just go to hell. How do you handle that stuff? And so when you leave whatever group it is, you kind of like, I know about timeouts, and I know how much timeouts, and I know about feeding, all these things. Skill is key. And if that's what your Parents Anonymous will do for you, then I think that's probably appropriate. But what we'd like to have are recommendations from guardian ad litem or the counselors saying, I know this guy, I know what he can do, and here's what he can do. And he and I have had this talk, and I've tested him a little bit, and he knows what's appropriate for timeouts and discipline, and things like that. So you can get it from a lot of sources.
I mean, we hear that, a lot of complaints that I have to pay for this because Parents Anonymous isn't recognized in the courts. Where before, I know when I was going, and you were the judge in my case, you recognized the fact that I did go to parenting classes, and it was in, it helped me. And I'm still going, I'm not under it.
But you see, you learned some of those skills, didn't you? You talked about those
I learned
skills.
a lot.
And because a lot of us, we think that just because we have kids that we have natural skills. It's just like, oh, I'm old enough to drive, I can just get behind the wheel and drive. Well, it's not true. It doesn't come naturally to you. And, you lose your temper and whop those kids, that's not the right thing to do. And so you learn appropriate responses. And that's what these classes will do for you.
I mean, it really helped me out being a single parent too. And then I have to thank you for being the judge that you were, and I was in front of you, because I know I was wrong.
You didn't like me at first, did you?
I didn't think you were listening when I was saying, but I was wrong. I was dead wrong. If I had to go in front of any other judge to make a fair ruling, I would want it to be you.
Listen up.
I mean, you're hard, you're fair, and you gave me time to hang myself or straighten my act up, and I appreciate it, and I thank you for it.
No, I don't know your name, ma'am.
Doreen?
Doreen? Mrs. Doreen? Part of the reason a suspect or client or whatever you would like to say seems to be in the past, from a psychological point of view, therapists often stay in the past. They'll say, your child's saying you did this at such so a time. And the parent is saying, no, I did not do this. And you can get stuck for quite a while. I'd like to ask your advice. I have 15 minutes in which I believe I'm supposed to be that with my child. As you can imagine, there's a lot of emotion packed in that 15 minutes. 15 minutes a week. And I want to say things that I've not been able to share or have the things, like birds and the bees, for instance, advice for life, how to discern the true nature of things, various things. And there's this baggage, there's the accusations. How do you, and the therapist is driving this stuff from the past, into the present. The child who's diagnosed oppositional. How do I get beyond reacting to the negative things I hear on the phone and get to a peaceful place to where I can share the good things I have with that child in 15 minutes?
And you're speaking with your child on the phone?
Yes.
Are you in counseling now?
Actually, no. I'm supposed to be, but that's one of the things that was sacrificed in order to have a family therapy.
So you are in family therapy now?
Yes.
And that includes your child or children?
My psychologist was not willing to continue individual counseling as well as family therapy. So the individual therapy was sacrificed in order to do the family therapy on the phone.
I'm sorry, he's doing family therapy on the phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Where's your child?
No.
Oh, I see. In
North of Laurel, 5 miles.
Southern New Mexico.
You see the child at all in person?
No, Yellowstone Treatment Center.
Will you go there every once in a while and have a personal visit?
Sir, I went there in October, and then we had a TLC, which is a temporary legal custody, and I was shown that I should not go there alone without an advocate.
How old's your child?
One's 15 and one's 13. There are 2 children there.
Boys or girls?
One's a boy and one's a girl. Oldest is a girl. The girl, this is a pertinent question because the 15 minutes of phone contact with the girl was suspended because I've not been able to overcome this problem. And it's likelihood that the 15 minutes a week contact with the boy will be suspended unless I resolve this problem.
When you finish your answer, I have an answer for
When you talk about unresolved problems, can you perhaps talk more about that?
I wish I wish I was bright eyes from the old folk tale and could see what's going on Laurel. I can't. I imagine before I get on the phone to my youngster that the therapist is prompting the child to be accusatory with regard to the past. And the reason I say that is face to face, we have a pretty good relation. long distance on the phone. In therapy and to a huge extent, the 15-minute conversation in the evening, it's accusatory. And I might lead the conversation by, have you been able to be out tonight? There's a start, I didn't even get through my sentence. Accusations about the past. How do I overcome that in the 15 minutes and give what good I have to the child? When I respond, the time is gone. We both get angry, the child's hung up, and even one time I hung up. Or more often than the child hangs up. How do we get beyond that?
I would perhaps defer to Simon. You know, I don't have much background on your particular case or who the counselor is involved here or what the goal or the goal of the counseling sessions, that 15-minute, what the goals are of that counseling session and whether they've ever been articulated to you.
No,
Is this a 15-minute counseling session or just your 15 minutes to talk?
15 minutes chat time is what I'm concerned about.
With a counselor there though.
In the background.
In one case there is and one not. The boy, there is a counselor. The girl was just under her lodge and without supervision. And now that's gone. I would like to be able to get beyond this. I have some things to give and they're not getting through.
Can I give you an answer?
Sure.
You ever play basketball?
No,
You ever play football, sports?
football, yes.
I'm gonna pass the ball to you. And if I'm the quarterback, am I gonna, like, okay, here he is, I'm watching you. I'm gonna kind of pretend I'm over there, and then at the last minute, I'm gonna throw it to you. Right? That's how you do it in basketball, too. You fend over this way, and then you throw it this way. The point here is, you come on too strong. You're beating the kids up with advice. You haven't got anything good. I wouldn't listen to you. You're boring. You're boring. And you've always pounded on advice. What you've got to do is start over here and build your relationship. Tell me about the internet. Tell me about sports. Wait next year for the advice until you earn some right to give advice. All you are a drag from the past of some sort, a drag from the past. You have got to talk about something else, and in your mind you can give advice later on, but look around and talk about the internet, and he tells you about the internet, or he tells you about school, and and then somewhere in this conversation that you have 15 minutes, 6 months from now, he says, some kids in school stole some stuff, and you go, yeah, I suppose that's not the right thing to do, is it? That's advice. You don't go, I'm telling you something, boy, you better listen to me. He won't listen to you. And so you have got to take the indirect approach. Because if you come on strong, the conversation is over. And you've got to pay attention to what their interests are and play to that.
Sir, I had no idea what his interests are.
Then ask him. Let him talk.
We need to start wrapping.
You're coming
Relax.
to that conversation with an agenda. You need to let the child bring his agenda to the phone.
That's my version of what I would think a counseling thing was. You agree or disagree?
I agree. You can't force somebody to chat with you, and you can't force anybody to chat with you, and you especially can't force a teenager who's oppositional defiant and in residential treatment, who's been spending all week talking about their family past history and all the horrible stuff that they think has happened, to chit chat with you over the phone. It's impossible. You can't. You need to-
I do want to talk about the weather sometime, but we don't get to it. Is there a way that I can,
Sports,
or,
cars, girls, boys, clothes, guns, horses, DCR.
so when I hear a therapeutic issue, I should not respond?
Who cares? I mean, he set you up. Anything worth the salt is going to pull you right into a trap, into an argument.
There's the attendance sheet, a purple attendance sheet back on the table, if you could go sign it, and pass it around.
And so you've got to be a safe place for the boy to talk and the girl to talk.